Monday, November 4th to order. If you'd all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Sabosley, if you take roll call, please.
Okay. Mrs. Rossler. Mr. Purcell is not here. Mr. Seitz.
Here.
Mr. Dern.
Here.
Mr. Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Majernik.
Here.
Mr. Schlock. Mayor Schlegel.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. That's all for you.
Yep, so we're going to start tonight with planning and economic development. DJ Housley is going to present for planning and economic development. You can see on your monitor and on the TV screens, item number 1 is up there right now. But let me just give you a little background before DJ starts on number 1. We do have some newer members on council. Items 1 and 2 deal with applications that we receive from the county through the Vacant Property Recovery Program. And for those of you who are new here on council and our junior council people, this is a program that the county set up basically to get delinquent tax properties back on the tax roll. And when I say delinquent, it's delinquent 3 or more unpaid years of county taxes. So individuals can make applications to the county for that. The county sends it to us. We do a little background research on it. DJ will go through that. At the end of the day, we're just signing off on it. After we release it back to the county, it probably takes another year or so for I think the Redevelopment Authority of Allegheny County gets involved to get the tax liens removed and get it back on the payroll. So there is a process here, and like I said, even if council approves this next week, you're another year away from the property moving to the applicant. So, DJ, with that, I'll turn it over to you, and you want to start with number 1, the Vacant Property Recovery Program application on Farneth Road.
Sure, and expand a little bit on what Dave said. The applicant eligibility according to the county's program, the owner that's trying to buy this adjoining piece or this piece of property in question must be current on their taxes, water, sewage, refuse bills on all the properties they own within Allegheny County. They must also not have any outstanding code violations or municipal liens on properties owned in the county. So the county determines property eligibility on a case-by-case basis. Essentially, the property must be a vacant lot or vacant structure, have at least 3 years of tax delinquency, and meet any other criteria related to blight. Essentially, they fill out the packet that, if you guys haven't seen it, includes an application, some additional support data. So this piece of property in question is 966K388 on Farneth Road. And the exhibit isn't up there right now, but on the exhibit we had indicated the applicant's property with an outline in green, and then the adjoining property outlined in red. It's the adjoining property to the right of their existing home. Their application proceeds to explain the financial part, how they justify to the county that they have the means to fund what they want to do with it, and then the reuse plan. And the reuse plan can basically be, you want to use it for your extra yard, you might want to consolidate with your own property, build an addition to your house, things like that. Their application also came to us and Sam's department makes sure that there's no code violations or anything outstanding on their own property, which we found none. So everything's in order as far as our end of things. Should you guys make the motion to continue with this next week, it would then be signed and returned back to the county, and then, like Dave said, it'll continue their process, which will take several months to a year.
Questions, comments? Okay, agenda item.
And then item 2 is the exact same scenario, so I'll hold off on reading all the eligibility stuff. This one is tax parcel 738L153. Again, the people that are filing the application are outlined on that exhibit in green, and the piece of property that's the subject of this request is the outline in red on that map. Same scenario. These people are doing this to add property to their existing yard. Could be any one of those criteria that the county outlined in their application process. And same thing, should you guys wish to move ahead with this next week, we'll execute the documents and send it back to the county for them to begin their portion of the work.
Questions, comments? Okay, agenda item.
Okay, item number 3, Oakmont Water Authority Land Development. This is item 3 and 4. We have recommendation from the Planning Commission to approve this application contingent on KU Resources comments of their last letter dated September 25th be satisfied, obtaining all third-party approvals including PennDOT HOP, Allegheny Conservation District ENS approval, and DEP sewage planning module. Item number 3 starts off with the actual waiver requests that they have for this site. The first one is in relation to the parking requirement, as far as having a specific number of spaces in a row and then the lack of a landscape island. And the second modification that would also need a recommendation from council has to do with the building setback to the actual parking area for the cars. They can't meet the 10 feet, and the justification is the PennDOT right-of-way to the existing building doesn't give them enough room for that additional 10 foot of space. So both of these, in our opinion, mainly the one with the island in relation to this, is not a parking lot open to the public. It's only for the people that work for the authority, and the limitations because of the site as it currently exists with relation to the 10 foot spacing from the building. We recommend to staff that both of these modification waiver requests be granted. And then in relation to that, item number 4, contingent on the Planning Commission conditions, we also recommend that you approve this application for the land development as well next week.
Questions, comments, discussion? Okay, an agenda item.
So those are actually, just for the record, 2 agenda items. Number 3, the request for waiver modification, then number 4 for the actual land development.
Okay, item number 5 is the Wannagat plan of lots. This is just to be accepted as complete at next week's meeting.
Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, agenda item.
Item number 6 is accept as complete the SRK real property subdivision. Just accepting it as complete.
Comments or questions? Okay, agenda item.
Item number 7 is the reapproval of the Patriot States consolidation approval. If you guys aren't aware, after you have a plan approved and all conditions are met, or essentially the plan is signed, they have 90 days to record it with the county. In this case, the original plan was signed in September of 2022, so they're well beyond their 90 days. So they've applied for reapproval of this plan. There's no changes to the plan other than an additional sticker with the reapproval clause on it. We recommend that you guys consider that for approval at your meeting next week.
Is there a reason why it took them so long to do this?
We're not sure. There's several subdivisions leading up to the major development that was also approved. We're not sure why this one fell through the cracks. And then they're also, they have approval to start construction on the overall project from the land development point of view, but that subdivision needs this subdivision along with all the other precursor ones to be recorded to keep everything in line. So,
any other questions or comments? Okay, that'll be the agenda item.
So that's it for planning and economic development. From there, we'll move to personnel and management. For the record, council met prior to the meeting to an executive session to discuss a number of personnel items. We do have one item that is not an executive session item. Jim, if you want to just go over number 14.
Number 14 is a 2025 council meeting schedule. Routine every year at this time, we just advertise by before the end of the year for the next year's meeting schedule. Like I said, the standard 2025 has two meetings will be off kilter on Wednesdays as opposed to Mondays due to holidays, which would be Columbus Day and Labor Day.
Any questions? Okay, that'll be an agenda item.
Moving on to public safety, item number 15, civil service ordinance. This was on our agenda last month for this to be advertised. This ordinance, the amendments have been reviewed and changes recommended by the Civil Service Commission. These changes are needed. They are needed in order to conduct the promotional process for the patrol corporal position. The passing of the revised civil service ordinance will allow for the process to begin. Applications can be submitted by the officers. There'll be a study period and then an exam period in January with an oral exam in 2025, possibly with promotions in March of 2025.
So this changes for the corporal position?
For the patrol corporal position, that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, agenda item.
From there, we go to Parks and Rec, Borough Haps. Jim, you want to go through the Borough Haps, number 16? And I can do it for you. So this is just basically what we do every year. Borough Haps department pushes out a schedule that looks at what we're going to be doing for the next year. The new calendar has new events, including breakfast with the Easter Bunny instead of Easter egg hunt. Mona's excited about the next one, Walking and Wagging. It's a dog walk here on the Mike Thomas Way. And then the rebranding of our Christmas at Plum Creek into Winterfest with a capital F for Fest. And that will be a two-day event, a break from what we've been doing for the last number of years. It'll be a Friday and Saturday. So we met with our rec committee and looking forward to expanding that program in 2025.
Questions or comments?
I just have a question. The summer movie series?
Yeah.
Into Friday evening?
Yes.
What is the attendance typically?
Well, that's why we're trying something different. So, we've had them, and I think we started this right before COVID, then during COVID. And when we were at Larry Mills during COVID, we had excellent attendance. And those were Saturday night movies. So, moving here, we had kept that Saturday night date, and attendance was disappointing, to say the least. Jim, you would agree, no more than 20 or 30 people at the movies. So we'll try a little more advertising and try a Friday night and see if that works.
Do you want to move it back to Larry Mills?
Right now, I think we're going to try a Friday night and then decide what we're going to do there.
Any other?
What was the thought on expanding the Winterfest for 2 days?
Yeah, so, right now we, staff and Public Works, they do a lot of work and set up, for this event. Instead of 1 day, 2 days, hopefully giving people, if they can't make it 1 day, make it another day. We're looking to target some different age groups. Right now we have Santa that comes, and I think with the demand for Santa may be here for 2 days. But at the same time, trying to find events for our teenagers and adults that we just don't have on the agenda right now.
Another reason is it's always on a school night, so moving it to Friday and Saturday, that goes away.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, that'll be an agenda item.
Okay, from there, we're going to move on to our finance. We have here tonight Mike Whittico, our Director of Finance, to present the 2025 budget.
Evening. All of you should have been given the proposed 2025 budget. Pretty sure I gave everybody a copy. Promise you this is going to be a lot easier than the 2024 budget presentation. Want to thank the Finance Committee for their participation in going through the entire process. Thank Borough Manager for his assistance along the way. And also all of the department heads. I've stressed over the past couple years to take ownership of your departmental budgets, push down some more of the responsibilities down to the department heads so they clearly understand what is inherent in the budget so they take ownership of it. And honestly, they have. They did a great job this year. So the entire budget proposed here is about $26.3 million. Represents about a $1.1 million increase, or about 4.4% over 2024. Some of the major assumptions inherent in the 2025 budget is there will be no real estate tax increase. Healthcare costs are increasing by 9%. Insurance costs estimated to go up by 5%, which would include our workers' compensation policy. Some replacement hires need to be filled in 2025. We had a budgeted position for the past 2 years for in-house engineer that has yet to be filled. Haven't been able to find the perfect candidate, so that again is budgeted for next year. Going to be hiring a public works road supervisor that is now vacant due to the promotion of the director of public works. And also planning on hiring 2 public works laborers, assuming that we're going to have 2 retirements here early in 2025. We also have a vacant position in our IT department, and that's also planned to be filled. This budget also includes a $300,000 transfer that I'm proposing happen before the end of this calendar year, this budget year. Funds will be coming from the general fund to the capital improvement fund. Funds will be out of prior year's fund balance. Specifically, these funds are for the Abers Creek Stormwater Project. There is a shortfall of funds to complete the project. And in the general fund, a few years ago, we received ARPA funding, which was during the COVID crisis. At that time, council approved to use these funds specifically for stormwater projects. So these funds have been sitting in the general fund. Over the past few years, we've transferred money into the capital improvement fund to complete these projects. Again, this is proposed to be, the transfer is proposed to happen prior to the end of the calendar year, and it'll be part of the budget approval process. Quick overview of the general fund, which is by far our largest. Revenues about $17.3 million. Expenditures around $16.7. That's going to provide us with a surplus budget next year of $634,000. If you remember last year when I proposed the tax increase, I looked at a 5-year window going through 2028. The upfront 3 years projections indicated that we would have a surplus. Last year I projected it would be about $600,000, and we're pretty close to that. Year 3 there will be a smaller surplus, but year 4 and year 5 will be drawing upon this surplus to get through 5-year plan. At this time, I still think those projections are pretty solid, and we should be good through at least 5 years and possibly 6. 82% of the revenues are made up of 3 revenue sources: real estate taxes, income taxes, and sanitation fees. About 72% of the expenditures come from public safety, police department, public works, and sanitation. Again, total revenue budgets are $17.3 million. That's an increase of about $235,000, or 1.4% when compared to 2024. Total real estate tax revenues are budgeted at about $6.6 million. Local enabling taxes, which are deed transfer taxes, earned income taxes, and local services taxes, are budgeted at about $5.6 million. Cable TV franchise fees at about $521,000. That's a decrease over 2024. We're seeing and budgeting for a decrease due to the fact that households are now streaming more. Intergovernmental revenues are budgeted at about $1.7 million. The 3 largest sources of revenues here are the state pension fund aid, $583,000. The RAD, regional asset district funding, $785,000. That is the extra 1% sales tax that we as Allegheny County residents pay when we purchase items that are taxable. And contracted snow removal, a little over $100,000. Sanitation revenue is estimated at $2.42 million. Expenditures now are total budgeted are about $16.64 million. That's an increase of about $650,000 over last year, or about 3.9%. Now, a quick review of some of the departments. The administration increased by about 6.8%. Total budget is $1.8 million. The increase is primarily due to personnel-related costs. They increased by $105,000. Borough buildings, a separate department for all the buildings that we own and maintaining them, decreased by $109,000, or about 14%, mainly due to utilities. When we budgeted for electricity for this building that we are in right now, didn't know not a whole lot about what it was going to cost. We went by electricity billings for 3 or 4 months. Due to the fact that we changed the lighting systems in here, mostly due to a lot of monitoring and changing by our IT director, we were able to reduce electricity costs quite a bit. Also, we were notified by our provider that they were overbilling us. So looking at the reduction in utility usage and the overbilling, electricity is going down by about $72,000, which is really good. Our largest department, which is public safety, or our police department, total budget $6.42 million, increase of 6%, or about $364,000. We have budgeted for no new hirings, and there aren't any planned retirements that we are aware of. The police general wages went up by about $224,000. Contractually, they're locked into increases hourly rate of 3.5%. So mainly that is why we're having an increase there, but we also have some police officers that are progressing up the ranks of the wage scale, 80, 90 to 100%. So that's also a factor as to why the wages are going up.
What was the police budget? About $6 million?
It was 6.42 million.
6.4.
Yes. Our required pension contributions are a little under $1,995,000. We typically release 4 payments throughout the year. Also in the budget, there is a replacement of issued firearms to our patrol officers, which is about $40,000. Community Development Department increased by about 10%, or $76,000. Yearly salaries increased by 19%, and we're also budgeting for a comprehensive plan, budgeted at $46,000, and that's a little bit overdue. Sanitation costs are increasing by $6.4 million, or $148,000. We do contract that out, and the costs are mainly due to contractual increases that we have. We also budgeted for replacement of trash containers at $18,000. Public Works, or Road Crew Department, increased by $100,000, mainly due to the fact that there was a new contract last year. Last year we did not budget for any increase, so there is like a double or an accumulation of 2 years of wages in here at about $72,000, but that's all tied into the contract. Winter maintenance products, or the salt that we purchase to remove the ice and snow from the roads, decreased by $176,000. That's mainly due to the fact that we didn't use much salt last year, and we have a pretty good stockpile going into this winter season. Traffic control devices increased slightly. The majority of that budget is utility for streetlights at about $350,000. Public Works maintenance decreased by about $24,000, and that's due to the fact that the cost of diesel fuel per gallon has decreased since we budgeted last year. Recreation Department includes maintenance of the borough parks, increased by about 13%, or $69,000. The majority of that is employee related. We do allocate some of the Public Works costs and their employment package to the Parks and Recs Department. Community Support Department, which includes the community center, library, and community activities. The community center stipend is budgeted at $97,000. Library stipend is budgeted at a little over $125,000. As we talked about earlier, the borough HAPS community activities, it's budgeted at $68,000. The majority of that, or around $41,000, is tied into Summerfest, as I call it, Light Up Night, but it is changing next year, and also Fall Fest.
And it was Winterfest with a capital F.
With a capital F, you got it. And also in this budget, as I mentioned earlier, we're proposing a $300,000 transfer from the general fund balance to the capital improvement fund. Now, I'll briefly go over the other funds, which are by far smaller when compared to the general fund. Our fire fund, revenues are always around $750,000 going into that fund, of which about $600,000 is real estate tax revenues, and the remainder comes from the fire insurance program from the state. Expenditures are about $803,000, of which loan payments are about $151,000, and that's for prior loans for apparatuses. We do give them monthly stipends or municipal contributions, shared equally at about $216,000. The fire insurance proceeds that we get to the state, we turn it around right away, and each one of our fire departments get evenly 25% of that. Street improvement, annual revenues are budgeted at a little over $500,000, all of which come from the real estate taxes. Expenditures are a little under $750,000. Road construction, which would be our paving project for 2025, about $225,000. And we also allocate a lot of our public works time because they spend a lot of time on our roadways to make sure that they're safe for our residents. That's about $420,000 on a yearly basis. We'll be using approximately $223,000 of the fund balance to balance the street improvement fund, but it's still very solid. Flood mitigation revenues are about $1.45 million. Expenditures are pretty much the same, $1.43 million. We do allocate our public works time here also. They do a lot of work associated with stormwater mitigation, preparing for the annual road paving projects. So that's about $800,000 of our employee time and fringe benefits are allocated against this fund. Purchase materials and supplies for these projects, a little over $300,000. Two small projects will be funded out of this fund. The second half of Blue Ridge and Tivoli, and also a pond retrofit for Lee Ann and Cherry Springs. EMS fund, we allocate about $500,000 yearly to the EMS fund, all of which comes from the real estate tax program. Out of this amount, about $445,000 goes directly to the EMS. Debt service fund is prior year's debt obligations that the borough is required to pay, principal and interest. Revenues are around $2 million. The majority of that comes from real estate tax revenues. Expenditures associated with bond principal and interest is $2,039,000. Capital improvements funds, revenues are about $2.1 million, $772,000 of which come from the real estate taxes. We're also budgeting for grants of almost $1.3 million. $250,000 for a new pool building, $250,000 for a Barnes Road project, $300,000 for O Block Pond, and $250,000 for Plum Creek restrooms. Again, we're proposing to transfer $300,000 from the general fund into this fund for the Aber Cricks Holiday Park project. We do have existing capital lease purchase agreements. We do fund some of our capital equipment either 3 or 5 years. Existing capital leases are about $500,000. There are some new capital lease loan agreements that we're budgeting for. Purchase access readers phase 2 for the administrative facility, and also the purchase of 3 new police vehicles next year. Some outright purchases, intersection security cameras that will able to assist the police department when something is going on and need to track somebody. Also, we're budgeted to buy a Ford F-150. This is another vehicle for the police department that is dependent on us receiving grant funds for that. If we don't receive the grant funds, we won't purchase that equipment. Pool building, $250,000. Plum Creek restroom, $325,000. Remaining green light go projects, 2 intersections, $238,000. Barnes Road is budgeted at $415,000. Hardy Park, Abers Creek, $379,000. O Block Pond and land, a little shy of $1 million. That's a lot of capital projects next year, a lot of which are dependent on receiving grants. Final fund, liquid fuels, that comes from our state taxes. On fuel purchases, we're estimating about $790,000 in revenues. Expenditures are $820,000, all of which will be part of our annual road surfacing. Road surfacing, we're budgeting a little over $1 million again next year. Any questions?
Have we seen any reduction in liquid fuels funds coming to us because of electric vehicles?
No.
Because I know the state's looking at adding something to when they register their plate registration to up their taxes. So that there's money coming back. Right now.
That's a proposal, yes.
Yeah, that's a proposal.
All right?
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
So Mike, if you want to hang out there for a minute.
Yes.
So we have the motion then would be to advertise this for the public's examination.
Yep, we'll add that to the budget, add it to the agenda.
Very good. So Mike, I want to thank you and your staff for the hard work on the budget, and, you know, council needs to hear that this is a year-long process. This is not something that you start working on in August where the schedule starts. It's a number of months, so congratulations to your department.
Thank you.
And while I have you up at the podium there, if you want to comment as we move into finance, item number 17, the request to approve new audit contracts. Our audit contracts with Mardusel are expiring with the 2024 audits. Right now, we do audits. Mardusel does audits for the library, community center, the real estate tax office, and the borough. Mike, you've worked with Mardusel all your time you've been here.
Yes.
And certainly Mardusel, is a highly respected accounting firm, if not one of the most in the state of Pennsylvania. So just a little bit about your opinion and your recommendation moving forward.
I did some research on how long we've been working with Mardusel, and actually they've been performing the audits since 1992. They acknowledged that from their end. I wasn't sure if it was 1998, but it was 1992. I've worked with them here, through my entire tenure. I have prior experience with them through my previous employer. They are, as Dave mentioned, highly regarded throughout the state. Very good to work with. If there's unknowns here, they're always willing to assist. Their audit teams are very, very professional, seasoned CPAs. They do, in fact, try to keep their team together from a year-to-year basis. That's very good from my standpoint, because if not, there's a lot of retraining and a lot of knowledge that needs to be transferred from me to them. But they've been very solid throughout the years. Their rates have been, for the general fund, they were pretty stable for 12 years. So going back 12 years, there was virtually no increase. There is an increase this year. I fully anticipated that through discussions with the partners prior to requesting for proposals. I would highly recommend them.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Thank you to the finance committee too. Good job working with Mike and putting it all together.
I can attest Mike does a really good job with numbers. His numbers are almost like dead accurate. They're pretty good.
Okay, so just adding two other items to the agenda. These are routine things that we do every year related to our budget process, and that would be for council to authorize the advertisement of earned income ordinance, which would remain at 1% for next year, as well as the local services tax, which would remain at $52 next year. So we're just looking for next week the ability to advertise those ordinances.
Questions or comments? Okay, we'll add that to the agenda.
Okay, so from there we move to roads, equipment, and grounds. And I'm going to turn this over to DJ Housley to talk about the PennDOT Agility Program. DJ, I know that you had met with PennDOT recently with Public Works, and they started discussion about this program.
Yep, we met with PennDOT. Their assistant highway maintenance manager came up to the Public Works building, talk about some different things they could do for us and things we could do for them. And that kind of all navigates around this agility program they have. So let me start by saying execution of this agreement, should you guys move forward with it, does not commit us to exchanging any services with PennDOT in and of itself. This basically clears the red tape. In executing this, it sets an agreement for a minimum of 5 years with an option to extend it for an additional 3 beyond that. And as part of the future negotiations, it's things like our Public Works doesn't have the ability to do thermoplastic painting at intersections. PennDOT could do that for us, but then in exchange, they would ask us to maybe mow along some of their roads, dig out some of the trenches alongside of their roads, things like that. That would all come at a further time down the road here. Their suggestion is we do a resolution to approve this agreement, and essentially it would appoint somebody like Dave and or myself to sign the agreement on behalf of the borough. We return it to them. It goes off to Harrisburg. From what they told me, it takes a month or two for them to process similarly on their end and return it back. And then after that validates the agreement, that's when we could enter into negotiations. Their recommendation was we go through this red tape part of it now, even if the borough would choose not to do any kind of agreements down the road, at least it's there for the potential to swap it. During the meeting, Mr. Burchek was there. He said in the past, and I don't have a date or when that was, PennDOT used to do seal coating for the borough at some point, and in exchange the borough was mowing some of their roadways. Some of the other things that were discussed was move some of the roads that were currently on our winter maintenance agreement to the agility agreement, and that would help offset costs for things we would ask from PennDOT. But again, that's all future negotiations. This is more or less just to clear the red tape so that we could even enter into those negotiations by essentially becoming a partner with them. So in the packet of information should be the email from this Tyler from PennDOT, a draft of the resolution that we would do. The first 2 pages of the PennDOT document would be the actual agility agreement to be executed after our resolution authorizes Dave and or myself to sign it, and then all the contract details basically that I just summarized to you guys.
Questions or comments?
I just have a question. So when we go and exchange services, would that come to council or is that done internally?
I think it depends on the expense. You know, certainly we want to keep the Roads, Equipment and Grounds Committee abreast of what's going on. You know, if we're swapping something where the numbers are pretty even, I would say no. Our goal obviously is to get them to pay for something more expensive than we're paying for. I think if that was flipped, we'd certainly come to council and talk about that. But, you know, this agility program has been around since the early 90s. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I think a lot of it depends on the maintenance person that we have in this district for PennDOT. And we have a new one. And that was the impetus for your meeting, DJ, with PennDOT. So, you know, we look forward to working with a new maintenance supervisor and see what they have to offer as far as sharing services.
So if we enter into this, is there discussion of what, like say PennDOT comes to us and asks us to mow 20 miles of roadway? We can come back and we can say we can only do 10 or we only do 10?
It's all negotiable. I think that...
So it's always an open negotiation.
Yeah, and I'm sure PennDOT would have values for, you know, like you said, how many linear feet or miles of road. They would have a value for that. And then on the flip side, we would have a value for whatever they're asking us to do. But again, like one of the attractive things was the thermoplastic painting that would last for several years versus traditional paint that we might put down that has to be touched up every year because it just fades from the sun and water and things like that. That was just one of the things that he floated as a potential because, of course, we don't have that equipment. And then if you get into subbing it out, the costs go up and it might be cheaper for PennDOT to do it at their cost versus us paying a sub or bidding it out for a larger scope project.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, agenda item.
Very good. The last item on tonight's agenda, item number 19, solid waste ordinance. Last month's meeting, council authorized the advertisement of this solid waste and recycling ordinance. This ordinance replaces a 2011 ordinance. It brings things up to date, talks about a variety of things, better definitions, the ownership of the carts. It talks about the collection of the household hazardous waste and electronic e-waste. Talks about reporting requirements and recycling requirements for commercial, industrial properties that are required by law to do that, and our previous ordinance did not address. So it brings us up to date, and it also, as I mentioned last month, talks about our billing relationship with Keystone, just as far as billing dates, penalties, etc.
Questions or comments? Okay, that'll be an agenda item also.
And I do want to thank specifically Mona Costanza and Lorinda Schlegel for working with me in the last year to put that together. It's been a lot of work there, and I want to just mention them to appreciate their work. And before I turn it back to you, just to mention that the regular meeting next week is moved back from Monday, November 11th, which is Veterans Day, to Wednesday, November 13th at 7 o'clock.
Okay. Anything further that we need to talk about?
Yeah, I just have one thing, I want to comment about the flags are finally up out there. Thank you very much for that. They look great.
Been up.
However, the service flags are not in the proper order. It's Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Coast Guard, Air Force. You got the Marines down the end, towards the end down. So let's put them the way they're supposed to.
Is that an official thing, or is that unofficial?
No, that's official. Look it up.
Okay.
I'll look it up first,
I will have Public Works take a look at
Please
that.
do that.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Mr. Majernik. Do I have a second? Mr. Slot made the second. All those in favor? Motion carries. We are adjourned.